Hello and welcome to the first lecture of the course Aquaculture. I am Mohammad Afzal Khan, Professor and in charge, Section of Fishery Science and Aquaculture, Department of Zoology, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Today, we shall be discussing about the introductory account of aquaculture. First of all, we should know that what is aquaculture? How can we define aquaculture? If you go through the published literature, you may find many different definitions or descriptions of aquaculture. But to put it simply, we can say that aquaculture is nothing but farming or cultivation of aquatic organisms. As the name indicates, aqua refers to water, culture refers to farming or cultivation. So, if any aquatic organism is being farmed or cultivated, we can call the process as aquaculture. Aquaculture is also sometimes referred to as underwater agriculture. Why underwater agriculture? Because of many similarities the basic steps of culture show. For example, in agriculture, we start the process by preparing the soil. Here in aquaculture, we start the process by preparing the pond. In agriculture, we have the step of sowing. In aquaculture, we have the step of seed production, fish seed production. Then in agriculture, we add organic manures or inorganic fertilizers in order to increase the productivity or fertility of the soil. In aquaculture, we have to use organic manure and sometimes inorganic fertilizers also in order to prepare the pond for increasing the primary productivity or what we call phytoplankton productivity, which is one of the important food items of the fish. Then we have harvesting and storing the seeds in agriculture and then taking it to the market. The same process here also. In aquaculture, we also harvest the crop and we have to store it appropriately in order to sell it into the market in good fresh condition. So because of these similarities in the culture practices of not only agriculture, if you start talking about livestock animals, the basic concepts are same. So because of this, sometimes aquaculture is also referred to as underwater agriculture. Now, in aquaculture, we cultivate not only fishes. That is why the terminologies aquaculture and fish culture are technically different. Fish culture, which is also referred to as pisciculture, is part of aquaculture. In case of aquaculture, we can select any candidate species from the aquatic system for cultivation. For example, we can select finfish, we can go for crustaceans, any of the crustacean. Then we can have mollusks for culture, oysters, mussels. Then we can also go for even algae. So whichever aquatic organism we are selecting in aquaculture, that may be as a good candidate species for aquaculture. But in pisciculture or in fish culture, the candidate species is defined. We have to select only finfish for culture, then it will be referred to as pisciculture or fish culture. But quite often, the fish culture is often referred to as aquaculture, and aquaculture is referred to as pisciculture or fish culture by many of the even researchers while talking in conferences and all. Why this is so? Although they are technically different terminologies, but this is basically because of the sheer dominance of finfishes especially in aquaculture. And because of this dominance, aquaculture is sometimes referred to as pisciculture and fish culture, and fish culture is referred to as aquaculture, although fish culture is only the part of aquaculture. In case of aquaculture, the dominance is as high as about 90%. The finfish dominance is about 90%. However, overall dominance, if you will see, of finfishes in capture as well as inland aquaculture, it is again more than half, about more than 60%, 63%. There are many species which are being commercially cultivated at global scale. Among many different species which are popular globally in aquaculture, we have some of them here. For example, grass carp, Tinophrangodon adela. Grass carp has been the topmost species being raised through aquaculture. This grass carp basically originated from Amur River in Russia, and it was distributed to many parts of the world, basically to control the menace of aquatic weed infestation. And now this is one of the most important species under aquaculture. And after grass carp, we have many other species which are of commercial importance and which are being raised under aquaculture globally. For example, tilapia, Oreochromis niloticus, the Nile tilapia. This fish again is a very hardy fish, but the problem with this fish is that Nile tilapia or Oreochromis niloticus, this is a prolific breeder. It may breed more than twice a year. And that means we may have different size groups of this fish available almost in every month. What does that mean? There may be competition for food and space, increased competition for food and space. Ultimately, we may not get desired fish size to be sold in the market. So while going for this fish, we should be little careful. Maybe we can go for tilapia monosex culture, where this problem is taken care of. So next, I can talk about Indian major carps, the very important fish group with respect to our country, India. These Indian major carps are very popular, we all know. It includes Katla katla, the surface feeder, then Leburohita, rohu, the column feeder, and then Siranus mirgala, the mirgal, which is bottom feeder. So these Indian major carps have been cultivated or are being cultivated across the country, and there are many success stories of fish farmers doing polyculture of Indian major carps. In fact, in India, now farmers and entrepreneurs, they have almost all the know-how to raise the Indian major carps through polyculture, and we are producing a good quantity of Indian major carps nowadays. We also have among these species common carp, which is globally known as carp. In fact, this is one of the most important representative of carp. This is again for us, this is an exotic carp, as it was other fishes were like grass carp and Nile tilapia, they were also exotic fishes. Common carp is also very hardy. This can be cultivated. This can tolerate a little wider range of temperature. So this is a very popular one. Then we have many of the catfishes like Pangasianodon, Pangasius, and then we have many other fishes like Clarius species, Clarius metricus, the Indian mangur, and then the other species, African of Calarius, that is African catfish, Cladus caripinus. Then we have rainbow trout. Rainbow trout, again, an exotic fish. And it has been successfully transferred to our country and being raised especially in Kashmir Valley. And this is a cold water fish, and this is being produced in good quantity in our country now, in the colder parts of the India. Then we have many other fishes like milkfish, um, raised in brackish water aquaculture. Then we have salmosalar, which is not raised in India, but in other parts of the world, Norway and all. This is one of the diadramous fishes. In fact, it shows anadromy. It lives in ocean and then moves to the river for breeding. And then we also have many other species, not only fishes, but crustaceans, like, for example, the Peneus monodon, tiger prawn. And then we have, in freshwaters, we have Microbrachium rosenbergi, the giant freshwater prawn. Or these days, Peneus venemi is very popular, the Peneus venemi, white leg shrimp, what we call. And we have Gracilaria, seaweed, and river turtle, and many other aquatic organisms like Japanese kelp is also being cultivated, and red jellyfish, sea cucumber, mussels, oysters. So these are the species which are being cultivated. Now, I can give you a little bit of historical perspective of how aquaculture started and where it started, when it started. In fact, what literature shows that aquaculture was started by Egyptians about 2500 BC. And in fact, it was nothing but raising or keeping the fish in confined environment. So that was the mention. And we can also get the mention of aquaculture using common carp from Chinese societies, which dates back to about 1000 BC. And the very common species is Cyprinus carpio at that time, what mention we are getting. Now we can talk about types of aquaculture. What are different types of aquaculture, or categorization may be done based on different criteria. For example, we can also classify aquaculture according to the type of water being used with respect to temperature variation. There are certain fishes which are found in cold water regions. So the aquaculture in those regions is referred to as cold water aquaculture. And there are certain fishes which are inhabitants of warm waters. So culture of those fishes is known as warm water aquaculture. So for example, in cold waters, we have rainbow trout culture, and then we have mahseer culture, tartar. So we have that snow trout culture. So in warm water, we are having Indian major carps, many catfishes. Nowadays, pangasius is also being cultured. So based on the criteria of temperature variation in water. Now, here what we are going to talk about specifically is based on salinity in water. We all know we are having two major divisions based on salinity. One, freshwater or inland water regions where salinity is almost nil. Zero or slightly more than zero. In somewhere you will get to see that 0.5 ppt or 1 ppt, or to the most you can get up to 2, not more than that. So what is ppt? Ppt is parts per thousand. In SI units, we can represent it as gram of salt per kilogram of water. How many grams of salt is present in 1 kilogram of water? So that is referred to as salinity. So 0 to 1, or sometimes to the maximum 2 ppt salinity you can notice in some parts of the freshwater. But usually, generally speaking, freshwaters have almost zero salinity, you can say. So one is freshwater aquaculture having almost zero salinity. In freshwater aquaculture, um, we can have the aquatic systems like ponds, lakes, reservoirs, rivers, and the freshwater um, organisms like any of them, like Indian major carps, Labiorota, Katla katla, Sirenus myrgala, Cyprinus carpio, Tinofrangura nidella, or Clarius petricus, or maybe Macrobrachium rosenbergi if you're going for prawn. Then in inland aquaculture, uh, because of the salinity being almost zero, um, this is referred to as inland aquaculture or freshwater aquaculture. And freshwater farms may be constructed in such a way that the fishes do not face any problem with regard to either salinity or temperature or any issue that can limit their survival or growth. Then we have the other category. First category was freshwater aquaculture, where salinity was almost zero. Then the other category is marine water aquaculture, or what we call as mariculture, where average salinity of open ocean is 35 ppt. So there are certain aquatic organisms we all know which have adapted to live in open ocean salinity, 35 ppt salinity. If such organisms are being cultivated in 35 ppt salinity conditions, then it is referred to as mariculture or marine water aquaculture. Here now we can go for example, Sperus aureta, Latus calcarifer, and many others, Salmonella or Penis monodon. There are many fishes which can be taken up for mariculture. And there are basically different type of mariculture systems. Usually they go for cage culture, and many species are being cultivated in different parts of the world under mariculture. Although mariculture is not as productive or as popular commercially as inland aquaculture, but people are doing mariculture worldwide. Now, the third category, we have discussed a water system having almost zero salinity. Then we have discussed aquatic body having 35 ppt salinity. Now, we all know that when the rivers empty their water ultimately into the ocean, then rivers carry fresh water which is almost 0 ppt salinity. When it is poured into seawater which is having 35 ppt salinity, then what will be the salinity of the mixture? The mixture where fresh water is getting poured into the ocean, that mixture will have salinity less than the open ocean salinity of 35 ppt and more than the fresh water, that is almost zero salinity. So there are certain fishes which have adapted themselves to survive in wide range of salinity conditions. Such fishes may be referred to as euryhaline fishes. And if such fishes are being cultivated, then the culture practice may be referred to as brackish water aquaculture. And examples you can go for, milkfish or chenos, what we call, or pearl spot, Metropolis suratensis, etc. There are many which can be cultivated in brackish water systems. And there are, if you go to the coastal regions, there are many brackish water aquaculture farms where people are not only raising the fish, but they are more popularly going for mollusks also. And the mollusks are being cultivated in brackish water aquaculture at a large scale in many parts. Then we have to discuss about the aquaculture systems. at what kind of aquaculture systems may be there. So, if you refer to the report of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, they classified aquaculture systems into three broader categories. What are these? Extensive, semi intensive, and intensive. Extensive category, in fact, doesn't need much care. Semi intensive, you have to take a little bit of care. Maybe the food available in the pond is not enough for the fishes or aquatic organisms being cultivated. So, you may be needed to provide, or you will be needed to provide supplementary feeding from outside. But in intensive aquaculture, you have to take care about everything, and you have to take control about right from water quality parameters to feed and all the aspects. Here, no food from natural sources. All the food requirement will be met up by food from outside. In extensive aquaculture system, if we go through, then they are basically, as I told you, least managed form of farming system, where in fact you must have seen that in community ponds, um, many a times what happens that the community people, they get some seeds and stock into the pond and forget. They just stock the pond with some seeds. Now they don't have to worry about their feeding, water quality treatment, or whatever. No management. Since the fishes are being stocked in extensive system at a very low stocking density, that means stocking density means number of individuals per unit area or per unit volume of water, whatever you wish to express. So if the stocking density is very low, the food requirement of these fishes will be met by natural food already present in the pond. So you simply stock the food, the fish, and the fish are feeding on the natural food which is already available in the water. Stocking density is low, and no supplementary feeding or no fertilization or other things are required. Um, you can stock Indian major carps, you can stock any other fish, especially morels. There is one more thing I would like to share with you, that these snakeheads, Channa striata, Channa punctatus especially, if you have seen the rice fields, there are certain rice varieties which need continuous presence of water. So if the water stays for a long time in the paddy field, then what farmers do, they get some of these morels and stock into the rice field. When they, after rice crop is ready for harvesting, now the farmer is harvesting not only the rice crop, but the farmer is also getting additional incentive in the form of fish crop. So that is referred to as integrated fish culture, that we can discuss sometimes later. And but there also only fish stocking is done, no feeding from outside, nothing about water quality or other things. So, and that there is one reason for that, that they don't go for water quality and other things, because the channa species, Channa punctatus, that is having accessory breathing organ, and that can survive in low dissolved oxygen conditions. So that can be used for such kind of culture systems. Then we have semi-intensive aquaculture system. We discussed extensive aquaculture system, where almost no management was there, least management. Then we have semi-intensive aquaculture system. What happens here? Compared to extensive aquaculture, we slightly increase the stocking density. And when you are increasing the stocking density in order to get more of aquaculture produce, then the natural food which is already available in the pond is not enough to meet the food requirement of the fish stock which is present in the pond. Now, what you have to do, you have to supplement it with food from outside. So maybe you can prepare your own food with the help of locally available feed ingredients, um, maybe rice bran or wheat bran or some of the oil cakes like groundnut oil cake, mustard oil cake, and many other locally available feed ingredients, usually byproducts of agriculture. You can use those feed ingredients in order to get good nutritionally balanced diet that you can supplement into the semi-intensive aquaculture system. So here you have to supplement some food from outside. And while preparing the pond for semi-intensive aquaculture, you may be needed to use organic manure or um sometimes a little bit of inorganic fertilizers also in order to increase the productivity in terms of phytoplankton. So, in order to increase the plankton productivity, sometimes during pond preparation we use organic manures or fertilizers also. And the examples of semi-intensive aquaculture, as I have discussed earlier also, Indian measure carps are one of the best examples. And in countries like ours, India, we have majority of the aquaculture system. In fact, the good growth stories about aquaculture have been written only with semi-intensive aquaculture system in India. And you will find this type of semi-intensive aquaculture system across the country, and people have done it very successfully. They do it in earthen ponds, and they stock not only one species but more than one species, and the process we call as polyculture or sometimes composite fish farming. That is the best example is Indian measure carps being stocked together. Katla, I told you, the surface feeder, and the Leberohita, the column feeder, and this Ranus mergala, the bottom feeder. It's not only that only combination of these three fishes is there in polyculture. We can also go for more than three species combination, maybe six species combination if we are going to stock carps only, or maybe we can go for mixing with other organisms also. So that was about semi-intensive aquaculture. Now, third category is intensive aquaculture system. Here, the stocking density is even more than the semi-intensive aquaculture. Now we have increased the number of fishes being stocked per unit area. Now, if we have increased the stocking density, what will happen? There will be two direct impacts. The one is the dissolved oxygen content which is present in the water, which is necessary for the survival of the fish. This dissolved oxygen content is limited. And now we have increased the number of aquatic organisms, or if we are going for fishes, then fish. Then there may be depletion of oxygen, and there may be adverse impacts on survival as well as growth of the species being cultivated under intensive aquaculture system. So what happens, in order to maintain the oxygen level, we are required to use aerators. So we use aerators. Then we have to monitor water quality because we are stocking a large number of aquatic organisms at one place. Then their food demand also increases. The natural food is not available in intensive aquaculture system. We do not go for natural food. Here we depend totally on food from outside or artificial feeding. Here you will have to take care of the growth pattern, the growth rate of the fishes, and the overall biomass of the pond and accordingly you will have to calculate the ration, what is the ration level required, at what frequency you need to feed them, and then you will have to provide food from outside. That means among all the three, this intensive aquaculture system needs very intense care. So, but of course, when you are doing more efforts, when you are putting in more efforts, more money, more time, then it gives more production also. So you get more produce, you get more income in intensive aquaculture if you do it scientifically. There are many species for which intensive aquaculture is being done. For example, Salmo salar. We have Dicentrarchus lebrax, and even in India, we are now doing intensive aquaculture with very popular Pangasius species, and some of the prawns and shrimps are also being produced these days in India with recirculatory aquaculture system. We have popularized the intensive aquaculture in across the country, in many inland regions. Now we are doing recirculatory aquaculture system of many important, commercially important fish species. So that's it for today's lecture. Thank you so much.